At the U.S. Coast Guard Academy graduation ceremony on May 17th, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, General John Kelly, told the graduating cadets that our first president added something to the oath of office.
They handed it to George Washington just before he became president, and the only thing he added to that oath was "So help me God."
No, Secretary Kelly, George Washington did not add those words. And in fact, those words don't appear in the oath of office that's written in Article 2. So any president who adds them is effectively amending the Constitution in the very act of promising to uphold it. We're pretty sure Washington didn't add these words because no contemporaneous accounts record him as having done so. The French foreign minister was standing right next to Washington, his personal secretary, the Journal of the Senate, the Journal of a Pennsylvania senator who was at the inauguration, and no newspaper account of the inauguration mentioned the words, "So help me God." And it would have been something worth mentioning since they aren't in the oath. So where does this myth come from? We have Washington Irving, that father of so much of American mythology, to thank for this as well. You remember Irving, he wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle. He also wrote about Washington's inauguration, which he saw when he was 6 years old, but he didn't set down his recollection until 70 years later. According to his reports, he stood on the corner of New and Wall Street viewing the inauguration. That's about 200 feet away. That a short child could hear and remember the words, the final words of this oath of office, that none of the adults who were actually recording the event put down, from 200 feet away through an innumerable throng of adults, from a notoriously soft-spoken Washington, without the aid of modern technology, is simply not to be believed. It didn't happen. Like Washington, there's no evidence to suggest that any of the early presidents added this phrase to the oath. Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, John Quincy Adams, none of them added the phrase. It's not until Chester A. Arthur that we get a reliable report of a president adding "So help me God." And even then, it was in his second oath. He was taking an oath after President Garfield had been assassinated, and he was already sworn into office, and this was the second ceremonial oath that he took it in, that he might have added the words. The first verifiable use is FDR in the 1930s. So this is really a Johnny-come-lately addition to the American vernacular. That's why I wrote Secretary Kelly a letter, explaining that this is a myth that perpetuates another myth, that we are a Christian nation. And we most certainly are not. The United States is a secular nation founded on a godless constitution. And we should do away with these myths that claim otherwise. We should be proud of our secular and godless heritage and the fact that we are the first nation to separate state and church.